Good evening, everyone. Thank you, friends, for joining me once again for this Facebook talk tonight. I appreciate you joining me here, and it's been a long time since the last talk we had when it was just before the elections. And I thought that I'll give everybody a bit of a breather while the outcomes of the elections have been decided, and of course Parliament resumes and governments formed and all those things happened as we went along. So I thought I'll give everybody a bit of a rest while we take stock of what has happened. But I'm pleased to join you here, have you join me here tonight so that we can continue to discuss on the issues that our country is facing, what our people are facing on a daily basis. And I know that this is a forum that we can exchange ideas and try and give comfort to each other that there is still a lot of problems in our country, but we must not lose hope. We have a great country. We have great people. We must believe in ourselves, and that we must believe that we can overcome these challenges and the problems that we have and move forward. So that is why I thought we'll start by just addressing some of the issues that we encountered during the elections, and then of course the main issue about some of the issues that are facing in our society, the economy and the struggles that we are facing there, the law and order issues, and of course health and education will come and follow on after, especially the discussions that we will have on the economy. But firstly, let me say that the country is facing a lot of challenges right after the elections. Before the elections, and as we were approaching the elections, the economic activity and business activity in the country was slowing down because of the anticipation of the elections. And of course, after the elections, with the challenges about the global economy and our own economic difficulties that we are facing, that challenge is still continuing right after the elections. So I think it's only fair that we say that the elections that we have recently had is certainly, according to independent observers and Transparency International and many other observers who have got no vested interests like myself and some of my colleagues in politics, have assessed that this is by far the worst elections since independence, or even 1972 elections before runabout the self-government. So we've seen a large increase in a number of election-related violences, and of course the most concerning part is that say that the observers believe that over 50% or close to 50% of our citizens did not vote in the elections. So half the country did not vote and half the country voted, despite the fact that according to the Electoral Commissioner and their officials just before the elections, they had 6 million or 12 million ballot papers, of which 6 million was for the provincial seats and 6 million was for the open seats. So if we had 6 million people voting, of course, it would have covered the population that we have in the country, especially the voting population. But unfortunately, despite the votes being casted, the people who voted, who were supposed to vote, did not vote, which equates up to 50% of the vote. That translates into that there has been a lot of foul play in the voting process in the country, and as a result, we've seen the outcomes of the elections as we have seen so far. So this is not according to the scripture of Peter O'Neill or anybody else who is involved in politics or leader of a political party or member of parliament, but this is according to international observers and people who are experts in analyzing election process around the world in democracies like ours. So it is quite disappointing. It's quite disappointing that people have not voiced expressed their views and expressed their desires by voting according to their conscience. Instead, somebody else voted for them. In cases, many hijacks took place. I'm not going to go and name each individual electorate and this has happened and that has happened, but we all know what has happened. We need to appreciate that this is an election that has not really produced the results that the country expects and expected. So we are all disappointed, naturally, but listen, we cannot continue to complain and whinge about these issues. We must pick up the pieces and we must run with it. Our country is too important to say that this is going to be a divisive issue for us. What has happened, but now we need to find the solutions for the problems that we have had. That includes the updating of common roll. It must start now. It should not be waiting for the election year to start updating common rolls. Very disappointing that the common rolls were not available, and I don't know how the number of ballot papers equated to the common roll. And as a result, there's so many foul play in the voting process taking place in each of the electorates right across the country. So I think that government owes it to the people of this country. If many of our people did not elect their mandated leaders to parliament, then we have a serious problem. We have people who are representing our people in parliament who have not been properly elected by the people. We have now a situation where a record number of election petitions are taking place, which clearly indicates that there is a good number of solid evidence of foul play and abuse of process and illegal votings and the all range of issues that we come to now realize that a failed election comes about as a result of those actions that we have mentioned earlier. So I think it is important that we appreciate it, we try and get on with it. We also need to re-examine ourselves and see the role of some of our government institutions, like the Electoral Commission. This is supposed to be an independent commission, but unfortunately, the Electoral Commission's performance has been certainly way below bar and below the expectations of our country, expectations of our people, and expectations of free and fair elections in a democratic society. I think Electoral Commission needs to re-examine itself. A clear number of petitions indicates the failure by the Electoral Commission and the security forces in ensuring that there was a fair and free elections. People did not have their say, and that is clearly indicated by the 112, 113 plus petitions that are before the court. We should not be running to court all the time to fix problems, clogging up the court's time and court not giving priority to other issues that are affecting our country, but continuously been bombarded by election petitions. And this is the case as we face today. So we'll leave it to the courts to work that through, but the Electoral Commission needs to take some ownership and responsibility of the failure of the election in the country. The process has been highly corrupted by the Electoral Commission itself. I think the commissioner needs to, in all fairness, needs to look at his own position. He needs to do the right thing by the country, and if I were him, I would definitely offer my resignation, because I can believe that he can say that he does not have the confidence of the people of the country. To have any by-elections under him is not a vote of confidence in the performance of the Electoral Commission. He needs to go, and he needs to go voluntarily. I don't think the government has got any moral standing to protect this particular officer in keeping their job. He has seriously failed the nation, and he needs to consider resigning and moving on. The second issue is the performance of the security forces, both the police and the defense force. Instead of protecting the assets of the state and protecting the peaceful conduct of elections, they participated in many cases in the election process. Forcing of counting, forcing of voting, participating in moving of ballot papers and ballot boxes here and there. This undermines the integrity and respect the people have for the security forces. And again, the petitions indicate and shows clear evidence of security forces playing a role within the conduct of the elections itself, voting process itself, and counting process itself. Now, again, this corrupts the process in which that they are supposed to protect our interest of our nation. And I think it is that we need to make sure that we enable a process that is going to be fair and free. The institutions of government like Electoral Commission, the Police Department, Defense Force are there to serve the people and the country, not serve individual politicians or serve the government of the day. The government of the day is determined by the people through a process that is the voting process. So I think it's important that we take note of this and that we review it and see how we can make it independent and fair. It is important to know that as leaders, we leaders who aspire to take up these positions, and when we take this position, we must have the respect of the people. We individually know how we won the elections, and how we know how the people respect us individually, whether they respect us as their leader or not. And this is a self-consciousness that we need to assess ourselves. And it is always important and it is always satisfying when you know that you have won the elections in the right manner and that the people of that electorate or that constituency respect you as their leader. Whether they voted for you or not, they will respect you as their leader because they know that you have won in the right manner. So I think it's only fair for everyone in the country and our people that we allow the agencies of government to do their job independently, fairly, and allow the election process to be not subject of discussion and subject of disputes and petitions in court, which is now currently becoming the norm of the day. So you can see that our people's voice is now no longer representative of them in Parliament. And that is why the petitions are going through. Let's allow the courts to go through. Again, the agencies of government in some cases have been used by individuals and people with vested interest to try and intimidate and try and through arrest or police using force and violence to intimidate opponents. We need to respect each other. The agencies of government are not tools of intimidation and harassment of people. It must be an agency to be there representing fairness, common sense prevailing, and allowing the due process to take its course. Of course, those who have caused problems and issues need to be subject of the rule of law. But in many instances now, it's been reported right across the country that police have been abusing and taking sides and taking the interest of individuals over the common good of everyone in that constituency or electorates. And these are strong messages and that are coming through this process that we have seen. But I can continue on about this all night, but as a participant in the process, I've got vested interest, so I will conclude there by saying let's allow the courts to decide on who's right and who's wrong, but you will see that many of these cases will be very interesting, the petitions that are before the courts, and we wish everyone the best wishes. But going forward, I know that the government has appointed a bipartisan parliamentary committee to review the elections that we have just concluded. That is good as a oversight body, but for them to go out there and carry out review and do the investigations and interviewing of people as people who are directly affected by the elections. We elected leaders or we candidates of the elections should not be participating in the review process. We should be allowing an independent body to review that. We've already got independent observers, we've got NGOs who were participants. We should accumulate all the reports that they are going to send to government and all the members of parliament and all the candidates right throughout the country. We should assess those and then take their recommendations and action them. But one most important thing is before the elections, in I think 2018 or 19, the Constitutional Law Review Commission, which is an independent body to consult our people about constitutional laws that are supposed to be put forward in Parliament for changes or review, they have conducted the review of the election laws and related constitutional provisions that they worked on, and they've traveled the entire country. The report was tabled in Parliament, and many of the recommendations are still valid. But of course, when the government changed in 2019, those recommendations and those were not taken up. And in 2022 elections, we completely missed the boat. So I believe that it's worth revisiting that. There's no point in getting politicians to review the national elections when they are directly participants and affected by the outcomes of that elections itself anyway. So I think while it's commendable that the government has immediately put a bipartisan committee together, it is important that we be above any suspicion and any idea of compromise. We should allow some independent bodies to go ahead and conduct such a review that will take place. So that is my little bit on the elections that we have just recently conducted. I know many of our PNC supporters who are with us may be disappointed and may disagree with the outcomes of the elections. We are all disappointed, but we have to accept what we have received. I want to assure you that we have done extremely well. Despite 16 wins, I know it could have been more. We have received 25 candidates of ours came very close seconds. Another 18 or 19 candidates came third all around the country. So close to 60 candidates did very well out of the candidates that we have selected for this the last election that has gone. So we did not perform too badly. We did not go and compromise any of our votes and try to inflate any of our votes. We got the cleanest votes that could be given to the candidates, and our candidates received that. And I want you to be very proud of their performance. We were a clear party of choice with clear policies that we went out to the nation. The nation appreciated that. The nation responded well, but unfortunately, the election issues that we have stated earlier has put us in a result that we have received so far. But listen, life goes on. We need to work together to get our country back on track. Let us try and correct some of the mistakes that we have made in terms of the conduct of the election itself, and let's move forward. The other issue is, of course, what is happening in the country today, and I want to just, before I talk about the economy, talk about one or two things that has happened. One is the violence that is taking place all across the country, both ethnic clashes and just violence for this, that is happening in cities and communities right across, either sorcery or crime-related violence. But this is concerning. This is concerning. The numbers are increasing at alarming rate. Especially the number of people who are dying as a result of this violence that is taking place against women, or against children, against each other. It is a daily occurrence in some societies somewhere across the country. I just want to say that every day someone is dying as a result of violence. Every day. Either one or two people dying everywhere in this country. And yet the number of investigation or the number of arrests that have been made to arrest those who are the culprits of those violence is almost non-existent. This is only about reported cases. We are talking what we read in social media and what we read in mainstream media. But just imagine the number of people who are dying and that are not being reported across the country, where society just finds a way to try and resolve those issues within our Melanesian way of handling these kind of situations in our communities. So the numbers are certainly much, much higher. So when you look at it and you say that if there was, say, one person dying every day in any part of our country, that's 365 people dying every year. That's the minimum we are talking about. But the numbers are far too high. So this senseless violence needs to stop. And it has to start with us leaders. We have to go back to our communities and tell our people that this is not normal. Once we start accepting this kind of behavior, and we said, yeah, money dies, so I'm all right. Not going to worry, tomorrow I'm going to buy compensation. We are just making excuses, and we will have a mindset in the future that this is a normal behavior. Well, let me tell you, passing where people anywhere in the world, if there's somebody, one person dying, the entire police force will be there to investigate and arrest the culprit. Even it may take months and months, but they'll continue to investigate and conclude it. What is wrong with our police force? What is wrong with our investigators? What is wrong with our community leaders and leadership that we are able to tolerate this? It is not right. It's unfair to the families who lose loved ones, and this kind of senseless violence destroys not only the families but the entire society. And of course that leads to more violence. So I'm appealing to everyone, please let us respect each other. This idea that the compensation issues will fix the problem is not right thing to do either. We must allow the legal system, the justice system to conduct and conclude the process of taking these people who are causing this kind of violence in our society to courts and prosecute them, so that they will be found to be accountable for their actions. So I also feel very strongly that about the violence that is happening in the city, especially in major cities around the country and towns, where we've taken our tribal issues, or whether we've taken our issues of our communities into the cities and affecting a range of people, very innocent people who are not party to those problems that we bring into the cities. And of course, related to that, also the displacement of our settlers who are in the cities. I know the Prime Minister over the last few days said that the unemployed should not be in the cities. But you just simply cannot pick them up and take them back home or deport them somewhere else. They have every right to be, this is called freedom of movement, freedom of choice. They've got every right to aspire to try and improve their living standards, aspire to try and educate their children, aspire and the right to acquiring jobs and business and doing SMEs. All we need to do is find a way to settle these people. And especially in Port Moresby, the good governor for Port Moresby City, Paul Parker, had a brilliant idea about settlements to proper suburbs that he was trying to set up. Government needs to support that initiative. Where settlers have settled for a long time, have got permanent houses, government must do everything possible to try and convert that land into a title for that family. We cannot continue to displace people, saying that, you're a migrant here. And when you look at now recent case of Morata settlement, when you look at the settlers there, this was a hunting ground for the Motu Kotabuans, and there were really no settlers there in the 1800s, from what I understand. That is my understanding. It was a common hunting ground, so nobody really owned that land, except, of course, the Motu Kotabuan tribes living around it had a first right to it. When the city developed, everybody came down it because these are big government land, so they had nowhere else to settle, so they settled on this government-acquired land from the traditional landowners. Now, to evict them, because you have to give it to one single developer or one single person, what about the rights of these individuals? They are citizens of our country. Those children who are living in those houses and going to school, they have every right to be educated, receive services, and be housed properly and looked after. I think that the government needs to step in. It has been silenced. We didn't want to politicize this issue. We didn't want to bring it up and take advantage of some sensitive issues like this where families are being affected. But everybody has been silent on this, thinking that it's okay to just evict thousands and thousands of families. I think this is wrong. This is not a sort of development that this country needs. It needs to protect its citizens. It needs to house its people. It needs to find a way to mitigate the problems that they have, rather than just picking up and say, get out of here. Where are they going to go? They're going to go and try and settle somewhere else. They are not migrants in their own country. They are citizens of our country, and government must step in. And I'm appealing to the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, especially Minister for Lands. There are laws to review the allocation of that land to one developer. That is undeveloped state land. He or she did not spend one toya to develop that land yet. They may have some glossy development plans and things, but they have not spent one toya. That means that our people have a right to settle. Our people have the right to argue with the State Department, state that owns the land, that you can revisit this decision. So I think it's important that this decision be revisited and do a plan where you can subdivide the land, give individual titles to families who are there. That's why you have surveyors, land surveyors in Lands Department. What are they doing? Send them there, survey the land, issue the titles, and let the families use that as a security of their family home and protecting their children and family. So I think it's important that we be realistic about how we handle the social issues of our people, particularly accommodation and living and trying to earn a living to feed their family. It's very important that we protect our citizens. The second issue is that our economy, whilst our Treasurer and Prime Minister said the World Bank has said that this year the economy will grow by 4%, according to World Bank and IMF, and which is fair enough, well and good intentions. But the reality is that this year, the thousands of people still out of job, a lot of people are still being displaced. Global economy is almost going into recession. Whether it's United States or Europe or China, the economies are shrinking. And they are the powerhouses of the global economy, and that drives every other country's economy, and PNG is no exception. So when they are heading towards recession, we will definitely be affected by it. And we can see already the struggles that our people are facing. One, there is no income. Two, the cost of living is already far greater than what it has been before. In fact, some of the consumer goods in the shops, the prices have been rising on a daily basis. And it has come to a stage where it is very hard for families to survive when real wages have not increased. I know the government has said that they've increased the public servants' wages by 3%. Because that is an agreement that was agreed many years for adjustment each year. So it is a normal adjustment to the wages of public servants. Nothing new. It's not because of the economic conditions that we are having that they have been readjusting to help the families. It is an industrial award that was negotiated with PEA many years before. So government has got every obligation to continue to do that year in, year out, to make sure that public servants' wage structure keeps up to that industrial award agreement that we signed. But in terms of real wages, the minimum wage is still the same. Real wages in throughout the country, both in private sector and many SOEs, remain the same. meaning that their ability to keep up with the increasing cost of living is reduced because the purchasing power of the wages and the salaries that they earn is now no longer there, meaning that they are, with whatever money that they are earning, they are buying less and less to feed their families. So when inflation, I think the central bank governor and the Bank of Papua New Guinea came out and in their recent statement said that inflation is rising at 5.6%. And the predictions by World Bank and IMF and some of the other people that government is saying that, and their own treasury estimates are saying that it will increase to about 6% or so. But real inflation, my fear is that it's much higher than that. And that is indicated by the price increases that we are paying for consumer items, especially basic consumer items that we are going on to pay for every time we go shopping. That is the reality that we are facing, despite the rhetorics and the statements issued by all these agencies. The reality on the ground is very different. The second issue is that we are an import-driven economy, where for everything that we consume, majority of it is being imported. We are not producing enough to feed ourselves. The only reason why we are able to sustain some of the shocks that the global economy and the recession is putting pressure onto our families and our community and our country is that we are a subsistence economy largely, meaning that we do things to fend for ourselves. We have gardens, enough subsistence farming to feed ourselves if worse comes to worse. That's a sort of economy that we are doing. We have a very strong social system, which is the Toktok system that we have. So responsibility of looking after a larger family can fall on to one or two people who are earning income. And those are the realities that we are facing. So sometimes because one or two people are providing the sustainability of a family, we are thinking that it's all okay. But in reality, those who are able to feed themselves should be able to earn an income. And this is where we are not doing at the present. So I think it is important that we continue to get the government to be realistic about the economic issues that we are having. The growth that we are talking about is all well and good, but it is a growth that is happening because, one, LNG prices are high, and LNG prices being exported is seen as it's a PNG export. Oil and mineral exports are high, the prices are good, so people are starting to buy more because of the conditions that not PNG is controlled by PNG or PNG government. It is controlled by the international community like OPEC on the prices of oil. They cut down production in major oil producing countries like Saudi Arabia, Russia, and all these places where they produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. They decided to say, we are going to reduce our production so the prices go up. So we are lucky that we are able to sell our oil at a little bit higher price and get a revenue for the country. Same thing with LNG, because of LNG crisis in Europe and Russia, and the war between Ukraine and Russia. Russia is one of the major LNG suppliers in European market. And of course now they're exporting to China and the other places like Japan. So I think we will see that the prices, although they are high relatively, they will readjust as soon as some of these global issues are resolved. So it is not a real growth that we can say that it will be sustainable for many, many years to come. It will drastically change. I remember, I think it was in 2014 or 15, when the oil prices were at about $101, and then it eventually collapsed down to $27. So our economy suffered as a result of that. So similar thing is likely to happen when global conditions change. So I think we have to be realistic. Our economy is still struggling because all the non-mining and mineral sector is is slowing down, despite the government's statements saying that there is some growth in the non-mineral sector. The reality is that the number of coffee bags we export has declined. Number of cocoa and copra bags that we are exporting have declined. I think the only consistent export that's happening in the country is the oil palm industry. But when you see the real beneficiaries of these industries, whether it's LNG or whether it is oil, whether it's minerals or whether it is oil palm, majority of the ownership of those sectors are owned by foreigners. So we are not getting the total value of the exports that we are doing and this growth in the GDP that we are talking about. Majority of it is been maintained by ownerships of foreign interests. So in reality, we are in a situation where we will continue to have this challenge before us, where we need to find a way to balance the revenue stream for government so that we can maintain the services that we have in the country. So all in all, I would say that the non-mineral sector is not performing as well as we should. Government's relationship with the business community, especially the investment community, those who are going to put money into sectors like manufacturing or agriculture or large-scale even mining and oil and gas industry, the relationship and the confidence is still lacking. That is why you can see that even though there are some agreements like Papua LNG taking place, the reality is that the project is not taking off fast enough as visibly as the first LNG project we had, where there was a lot of excitement in the economy and a lot of companies coming in there to take advantage of the investment by ExxonMobil and the partners in that project. But Total is a different case at the moment. Papua LNG is a different case. Now, it is also quite concerning. How can we have a manufacturing base and industrial opportunity to have an industrial base in PNG if we are not going to utilize some of these resources to benefit our people and our economy? In the case of Total, when we had the first LNG, we had to get the first project going, so we had to make some sacrifices, and I understand that. I'm not going to criticize the Somalia government. I was part of it. I take also responsibility of that government's decision. But second project with Total, I know that when I signed the agreement with Total, I made sure that 5% of the total gas LNG that was going to be produced was going to remain for domestic consumption. Whether we fully utilize it or not, but it was to be. So the agreement I signed indicates that. But from some of the discussions from private sector and people who are discussing with the developer of the project are telling me that that is not the case anymore. So I think the Somalia government and our government have tried to improve. I tried to improve on the Somalia government's first LNG project, and I thought that when Marape government took over, it was to try and improve on the deals that we have made. But I believe that that is not the case, and it is quite concerning because these are resources we are exporting, but we are not using the opportunity to try and be able to try and develop our own industries and our own ability to industrialize our nation. So I think there is a need for a open, transparent tabling of that agreement. I think the government owes it to the people to be transparent about the agreement. This is a public document. They should table it on the floor of Parliament to indicate what sort of agreement that they have signed, so we can start to analyze what benefits is going to come to PNG. This is an opportunity for us, one, to create more jobs for our people, industrialize our nation, and provide cheaper energy to our people. And energy, as we say today, I know that there are two very expensive power stations that have been built to utilize the gas in Port Moresby. Whilst we're still building that, I think in some cases it's partly operational or there's some operational issues, we're still living in blackout and we're still paying the highest prices. PNG Power was at some reliability in 2017, 18, 19, We need to get back to that, improve the quality of service that we are providing to our people, and LNG gas and all these things will be able to provide to them. But I think we are not sitting down and analyzing what we can take advantage of. We're just running around in circles and saying things, doing things, and have knee-jerk reaction without knowing where we want to end up and what we want to achieve. So we think that government needs to be able to have some focus on these issues. These are nation-changing projects that will benefit our nation for 30, 40 years down the track. We don't want to miss out on the opportunities that are there. It is time to do those because once you sign the agreements and once you have started implementing it and the project has been developed, it will be never easy to change. So I'm urging that we relook at some of this again. I also say that before we go into questions, that our report from the central bank from the economy looks concerning as well. They're saying that the foreign reserves are about 11.6 billion kina, which is about, I think in rough terms, 7 or 8 months import cover. But this afternoon, when the Treasurer made a brief economic statement on the floor of Parliament, he expects that foreign reserves will increase up to 14 billion kina. I don't know how that's going to happen, when in December 2021 it was 11.3 billion, and June 2022, so 6 months, it gone up to 11.6. So the increase of 300,000 300 million US dollars kina. So I don't know how it's going to go to 14 billion in the next 6 months. So 14 billion kina of foreign reserves. This kind of unrealistic expectation. We have to be honest to our people and be able to indicate what the true picture, so that when we have to struggle together, this is not about government and opposition and one person against the other. This is about our country and our people. We are going through these challenges together. As we live and work and look after our families and our communities in this country, we are going to feel the same pain. But don't think that because one is in government and one is a minister or someone is in a position doesn't mean that you are exempted or immune to the issues that we have in the country. So I think it's important that the numbers must be fair and factual, and what has been produced by the central bank is fair, it's factual, and we need to take heed of that and take the issues that they are raising. They are basically saying to us that keep your expenditures under control, maintain your revenue collections and increase your revenue collection process. And the IRC and customs people are doing an excellent job. They should continue to do that and take more taxpayers who are not paying tax in the country to take their part of the responsibility. If they are going to use the roads that we build and hospitals that we build and schools that we build, they also need to pay a fair amount of tax. And some people are not carrying and doing the fair thing for our society and our country. And tax office and customs are doing the right thing, and we commend them for that. But government needs to do more. They have to stop this extravagant spending spree that they are going, funding non-priority projects, politically convenient projects for the sake of political convenience. This is just going to blow out the budget, and of course we are living beyond our means because our expenditure is much higher and our revenue is lower, so we go out borrowing money to cover it, and that's where the deficit comes in. So I think it's time to tighten the belt when the economic conditions around the world are heading towards recession. That means that tough times are ahead, and we need to tighten our belt and make sure that we live within our budget, we don't live beyond our means, and we can get the country back on track. I think that recent experiences with the office rentals that are not being paid, power blackouts continuously, you can continue to blame the past governments, but you've been in government now 3.5, 4 years now. You need to get some reality check and say, this is a serious issues. I need to address that. And many of our leaders who are now traveling overseas, they can go and see our offices missing. Most of them have been thrown out in foreign countries. Our ambassadors and our foreign officials have been thrown out of their houses and thrown out of their offices because they are not paying rent. It's not like they're in PNG, so they can try and find an excuse to stay in those houses. These people in overseas are serious about timing and dates when you have to pay rent, and they throw them out. It's quite embarrassing for our country and for our reputation. We cannot continue to have this. We must be able to manage things. And one of the ways to manage it is PO's number one super, who owns most of the properties, like Volumedia House and RP Center, where we have been occupant of those centers for 20, 30 years. They've already received the cost plus profits of construction of those buildings. Somebody in government needs to go down and sit down with number one super and negotiate. Tell them, listen, you have got your money already. We want to continue to occupy those buildings. We want to pay you a residual value. Let us negotiate a price. I understand that you have already sold some of the real estate in Port Moresby and around the country to private sector already, but now you can sell this to government. So government starts owning its own property. You cannot be a renter for the entire country because this country is not going to go away anyway. PNG will be still here, so you might as well own something and build your own buildings. And when we started renovating some of the old houses in Wagani, everybody were complaining. But we did it because we wanted those buildings to be owned by our country and our people. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's expensive, but we have to do it so that we have a long-term view about all these things, and then the country will be okay. I think that one of the things that the central bank also indicated on the papers and in their recent statement is our debt levels. I know that Australian government is now giving budget support to be able to support our budget without any conditions and tying it to any project. So they're getting quite a substantial amount of money there to support the budget. And also, they're borrowing money to fund the deficit of the budget. So from the time when we left government to the time when Marape took over government, our debt level is now increased from 27 billion now to over 51 billion. The difference, as I've said it in many occasions before, is that we should not be borrowing for consumption. We should not be borrowing to fund the budget that is going to pay for expenses. We should be borrowing for economic infrastructure that will generate revenue and jobs for our country, and that's a difference about the value of the sort of loans that we are getting. So I think government needs to be seriously aware of this because interest rates are going up. Globally, interest rates are going up because they are pushing interest rates up to try and reduce inflation. But stubbornly, the inflation is not coming down fast enough, so the central banks around the world are increasing the interest rates, trying to combat the inflations that are rising. So in PNG, we are not exempted from that. Our central bank is doing the same. So we need to be careful. We need to be careful. Cost of money is going up. Indicator lending rates by commercial banks are well above 8%. So these are sort of terms that it's be impossible for Papua New Guineans to borrow money in the commercial banks. When you have the cash reserve rates going up, when you have the indicator lending rates going up, when you have the Kina facility rates going up, all these contribute to less and less money available to our citizens, so the cost of borrowings go up. So I think it's important that we take heed of the advice. The central bank, of course, our governor, who is Benny Popotai, is an experienced banker. I think he's got close to over 30 years experience, so he knows what he is talking about. And some of our people who are in Treasury and some of our leaders, young leaders who have taken up key important economic ministries, must take heed of this advice coming from people who are well experienced so that we get the right advice and make the right decisions. I know that we are running out of time, but let me say this. It is important that we continue to build investor confidence in the country so that we can get more people believing in our country and invest in our country. We just cannot say that we got all the resources, so we are rich, so we don't care. We can own everything, but that will not feed our family. We need to work harder to feed our family. We need to have opportunity to have a job. We have an opportunity to create SMEs and create businesses, and that's the only way it can feed our family and feed our community and have a sustainable living standard. So I want to say that there are tough times ahead of us. We've got challenges in energy, challenges in law and order, challenges in education and health systems. Those are things that we hear all the time, but government needs to come out with a concrete set of policies, pragmatic enough to addressing these issues, so that we can be able to say that we are making progress going forward, rather than just saying things and doing things for the sake of maintaining status quo or maintaining position. So I'm very pleased that you were able to join me tonight on this. But to conclude, let me say that the windfalls and the money that we are making on LNG and oil and gas, priority must be given. I know that people are talking about going and buying more shares in Santos and all this. With Santos, I have already stated very frankly, it's like any other resource development. The Kutubu and the Hides oil fields that has been producing oil and earning income for many of these developers. When they took over the PNG Total LNG project, a Papua LNG project coming up, publicly I stated that Santos and oil sites, if they are going to merge, they must put the oil fields to the landowners and the government of Papua New Guinea for $1. They've already recovered all their investment over the last 30 years or so. They've already made enough profits. Now we are giving them a new LNG project where they will make billions and billions of kina and dollars. So why are we also allowing them to continue to take the benefits out of the depleting oil fields that we have in Kutubu and Hajj and Angora and all these places? Our government must start thinking. The money that we are making from this must be spent on education, health, law and order, and addressing the violence, economic infrastructure, building roads that are going to make money for the country. Not building roads to population of less than 200 or 300 people. Even though they are our people, we must know that it costs money to build that road. They must also be given opportunity to move if they have got to try and have an improved economic life in their own life. But that's all personal decisions. But also priority must be given to trying to improve the growth of employment opportunities in the country, and that can only be done by moving private sector and giving confidence to private sector. I say this because I'm a small SME before I went to politics owner. I still continue to do business in the private sector. I have no business with government, but the struggles of business and SME owners I know very well. The government's support, even though the pronouncements and support that they are saying, like the 200 million kina, a lot of people, in fact the SME Council chairman recently said in the papers that government must be transparent on the 200 million kina funding that they gave to SME. Because I'm sure he's certain that it has not had an impact into the SME sector. You cannot have piecemeal approaches like that. And I think it's important that we continue to support sectors where it'll give us the best benefit of creating employment opportunity, business opportunity for our people. And the other area is manufacturing sector. Some of us who are involved in the small manufacturing businesses, we know the struggles that goes through, but it is a sector that can employ hundreds and thousands of people. And hundreds of thousands of people in our own country. Rather than sending raw materials out of the country, we must create a manufacturing base in our country, and government must clearly support it with incentives and support credit lines and cheap financial facilities that can give real hope to people who are trying to do small to large scale manufacturing in our country and employ thousands and thousands of people. We must support businesses that are going to grow jobs in our country, and this will, when you give a job to someone, they have the ability to look after their family, feed their family, educate their family, and so forth. So I think we are coming to almost the end of our conversation, but there's been hundreds and hundreds of questions coming through, but let me just ask, let me answer a few of them so that I don't be seen to not addressing the questions that you have put forward to me. I know it will go past 1 hour, but I will try my best to cover as much as possible within next 10 or 20 minutes, so that I give you a full deserving answers that you may want. But these are my personal views, and I know that some of our friends on this talk will never agree or sometimes disagree, but we live in a democratic country. That's what I think. So if you have a different view, well, I welcome your views as well. One of the questions that Garrison asks is the PNG economy collapsing under Marape government? Why is Pangu government cannot pay government rentals? I think we've addressed that already. We must minimize our expenditure levels, prioritize expenditure levels to priority areas like education and health and administration of government services, rather than having these extravagant travels and extravagant politically convenient projects. Now, I think we need to say enough's enough. Let's take stock of it. Let's have some common sense approach. So it's entirely up to the government to do that. He also asks, what do you think about 5% government proposing to buy in PNG LNG from Santos? Santos says you can buy it because it's a publicly listed company. You can buy it in piecemeal. When I went and did the oil sets deal, everybody jumped up and down. So Kumul Petroleum, who already owned the shares, decided to sell piece by piece. That has been a subject of the inquiry. All the reports are there, so I urge everyone who want to read about it, go and read it. But this was trying to solve a situation under which Somali government mortgaged our shares to the Arabs in Dubai, and I tried to buy it back and establish our percentage in there. Now Santos shares are almost very much similar shares that Kumul Petroleum is trying to buy it, but my simple advice is, I think, let our country take stock of what has happened. Along the way, we have been advised by so many experts who have misled us, who have taken advantage of us, who have deliberately robbed us. Let's take stock of what we have done from previous governments, including mine. But if Kumul Petroleum wants to buy some shares in Santos, let them go to the open market and buy it bit by bit. But most of the windfall that Kumul Petroleum now receiving from LNG and oil exports must come back to the state. We have a problem with our budget to fund our hospitals, fund our schools, fund our infrastructure. That money must be given to solving and servicing our people so that they can be able to have a better quality of life and service provided to them. I think let's take stock of it, and it's a bit too early to go running around trying to, because some smart advisors come like they did in our time during my government, advising us that this is going to be beneficial to the country, and we trust these people, we take their advice and then we go with it, and then we realize that they've misled us or they've taken us down the wrong path, and let us not make the same mistakes again. Let's take our time. Is it true that Marape government, our loan has gone up to 51 billion? Well, that's what the Bank of Papua New Guinea has stated, so it's a public statement which is independently provided by the central bank. Martin is asking, About the political, it's another political question, is that what would happen if the 74 or so members who have been elected now before the courts, if the courts find that the election is invalid? Where the citizens of this country are confused. Can you explain how it will go? Well, as usual, every petition that is before the court will determine whether the election has been properly conducted or not. And once the decision is made, they will go back to the elections, and by-elections will, but it's a long process. It'll take some time. It won't happen with the whole lot of the 74 members at the same time. It'll happen one by one because each case is different. So the stability of the parliament and the government should remain. But as we know, I think you will be witnessing some interesting court decisions. But as I said earlier, we cannot allow the same electoral commissioner who is certainly conducted the election that has almost failed in the country be allowed to occupy the position and conduct the by-elections. He must go. He has got no moral standing whatsoever. He has corrupted the entire process, and this is petitions are 112 plus petitions before a court is an indictment of his performance, and he should go. And I think the agencies of government, that is the appointments committee, who is chaired by Philip Undialu, Governor Philip Undialu and his team, you owe it to the nation. He may have delivered an election, but that election is not satisfactory to the nation. He must go, and the election be conducted to the fairness of the candidates who have lost and fairness of the members who have won too. They need a fair election, and they be mandated properly. Carl is asking, is that the Westminster system of government is that with so many political parties and rigging of elections at every point, and he's saying that this is clearly not working in PNG. Could we change the constitution and adopt the republic system of presidential system of government as done in US? What is your view? So he's asking about my view. My personal view is that this particular question was put to the people by the Constitutional Law Review Commission. And I think, as I said earlier, in 2018 or 19, we submitted a report to Parliament. Could have been a bit earlier, I can't remember, but I know that there was a report under the Atiafa-led Constitutional Law Reform Commission. That comprised of all the experts and all the independent thinking Papua New Guineans who went and consulted in every district and every province around the country. Their views are noted in that report, which basically recommends that the Prime Minister or head of government must be separated from the Parliament, the legislative arm. The executive government should not be part of Parliament. Then that allows for the election of the head of the executive government by the people, like the president, so whether it be Prime Minister or President, but it must be by the people. So this is something worth considering, knowing the fact that we have had this Westminster style of government over the almost last 50 years, since 1972, when we had self-government, to now, it's 50 years. We've had this, and it has not delivered and provided stability to the nation. Because politicians on the floor of Parliament are busy worried about politics and being in power and getting projects and getting positions. We forget about the country and we forget about the people. So I think it's a fair question that we should be able to consider what has been recommended by the Constitutional Law Reform Commission and implement that, and put the legislation around it in view of the majority of the people who were interviewed around the country, and public consultations that were done have given their view to the Parliament and the Commission. And I think it's important that we take note of it and we go forward. Whether the country will vote for the Prime Minister or President, or Parliament can vote for it. So that's a question that's before us. Warap has that, it says Chinese influence in the Pacific has been closely watched by our Western neighbors, Australia and New Zealand. He's talking about the defense minister and his performance, but listen, I can't comment on my fellow member of parliament's personal status, but what is my stand on the geopolitical matter? Well, China and United States and Russia and Europe, all these companies are big players in the global scene. Papua New Guinea has got a position to take in some of the issues that they discuss, but whether we make a big difference or not is irrelevant. Papua New Guinea must protect its own national interest and its people's interest. That's our number one priority. So every government, since self-government in 72 to now, we've had to deal with the United States, we've had to deal with Australia, New Zealand, China, and everyone across the board. And our attempts have been to try and to put our national interest first. So I think our position should be that our security arrangements have always been with United States, New Zealand and Australia because of our links during the Second World War and our colonial history. And that has never changed from 1972 to today. I think it's important that we maintain that. People must know that we are very consistent in what we do and what we say. So we have to maintain that. In terms of trade and investment, we can deal with anybody. And that's what we've been doing with China. When we were in government, we did business with China. We wanted them to invest in PNG, projects that we wanted that will benefit our nation. And that's what we have to continue to do. But in terms of ownership of business and things, this reserve list that Richard Marrow has been talking about it when he was a minister in my government and now he's still talking about it, please implement it. Cabinet has approved it, Parliament has approved it. It's now the implementation of that. Papua New Guineans' businesses must be protected. You and I cannot go and open up a tucker shop in China. You and I cannot go and open up a tucker shop in the United States or in Australia. We need to go through a regulatory environment checks before we even own one property in those countries. So I want to tell our leaders, please protect our people and we have gone through the reserve list, we have reviewed the list, we have made those approvals already. Now the officials need to implement this. So relevant ministers can go ahead and do this. Now, Ruth, who is asking about, is there anything to do with issue with General Hospital in PNG? Hardly any member of Parliament visit the hospital to find out shortage of beds and medicines. Well, when we were in government, we focused on general hospitals around the country, and we've built more hospitals than any other government in the history of our country. Now we need to make sure that they are funded properly, they are equipped properly, there's enough medicines in there to run this. And I think the new minister and our shadow minister are working together. There's a bipartisan approach. Elias Kabavore and Dr. Lino are working together and moving around together to try and address the health issues. This is beyond politics. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It is about getting the best care for our people and especially our sick in the country. So when we were there was a considerable amount of investment. We spent record amounts of money for healthcare in the country. And I think it is important that we continue to maintain that level of spending so that services continue to flow down to our most remotest areas. And it is important that it is a major challenge and we need to work together in doing so. I'm very pleased to see that the cancer unit that we started in Port Moresby General Hospital is about to be completed and be able to function here, and we can get cancer treatments in the country. The heart facility that we started there is already operating, I'm told, and it's costing less than the trip that people are making to Singapore or Philippines or Australia. So the heart surgeries that are taking place in the country is now available at Port Moresby Gen, and I'm very pleased and thankful to the doctors and the medical professionals who are doing well for us in that capacity in there. I'm also thankful to the Australian government. Today, Richard Marles, Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, went down to Lae to open up Enga Hospital, a project that Prime Minister Rudd and myself agreed to when we settled the refugees in Manus. It has taken many years, but we are there now, and Anga Hospital is now up and running. I'm very pleased with that. So slowly but surely we are getting there, but we need to continue to maintain the spending for medicines, equipment, and so forth, and bring some transparency into the way we manage this. And I'm certain that Dr. Lino will get all our support, and I'm certain that the Shadow Minister Elias Kapapure will also give his support, and we are right behind him. The question by Simon, who asks about law and order issues in the country. I've already stated about killings and fightings in the country, and this is not normal. Please, we have to stop. We have to respect each other. Every time you have an argument with someone, it doesn't mean that you go and take a bush knife and bow and arrow and get homemade guns and fire. And that's unnecessary. That's something time blow tumuna. We have to learn to respect each other. There are peaceful way of resolving issues. And one of the peaceful ways is sitting down and talking, our Melanesian way. Stop lost line, calling meeting the community and fixing all this problem. At lo yung mikili mo kata man, fight go kam, na background place, na background mo pikinin na family. All too money, all must got right to survive lo this la country. So please, enough pain lo you may give him lo society and all people lo you may. Me ask him the line lo you may Toktok land. You may Toktok na karam sambla common sense come inside lo this la tintin lo krape fight natin na kill man natin. And even a good la person. We talked about the issue on jobs already. The growth area for jobs in this country is private sector. Government must not be a threat to private sector. Government must be a partner to private sector. Government must give confidence to private sector. Government must promote private sector so they create more jobs for our people. And of course, they must make sure that legislative things do not frustrate private sector. Do not frustrate SMEs. Do not frustrate our individuals who want to really do business. Time will give up. Frustrated, they take matters into their own hands because they're all looking to how to survive. And I think the issue about the cost of living and things we talked about will answer those questions. Now I've already talked about the Selot asks about the electoral commissioner and why he's declaring members under special circumstances. I'm astounded by it, even though they may have legislative powers and things, but you're talking about a society where doesn't matter how competitive we are able to stand up and negotiate and talk with our fellow community leaders and our own constituencies and our own provinces. This empowering of one person to go around declaring members of parliament the special secretary should have gone and conducted the election again if there were some issues. I don't think any one of the candidates were opposing that. It should have said, listen, all right, we'll conduct the election again in this area, but you don't need to go out and frustrate the entire community and leaders and candidates and cause unnecessary anxiety so you can be able to make some silly decisions that are now affecting the country, and it's unnecessary. I think it's important that Parliament reviews that law, electoral law, and get rid of that power that one person has. Yes, definitely this kind of situations corrupt the electoral process. Electing leaders under special circumstances, you never find that anywhere else in the world. I'm sure we inherited some of this legislation from Westminster system of government, but they don't go around declaring leaders and declaring members of parliament in this manner. It is unnecessary and stupid and silly. So we need to stop. Now, I think, we've already talked about the economy and we already talked about the election and the law and order issues in the country. I think it's important that the government takes stock of some of the discussions that are taking place. I will respond to many of the questions that I have not been able to answer tonight, but we've gone past our normal time of 1 hour. Now it's 1 hour 15 minutes. So I will thank each and every one of you for putting up with me, staying up with me this late. I know it's not easy. I know things are tough out there, but believe that our country has survived this kind of challenges before. We will survive again. Papua New Guinea will be strong. We must be proud of our country, and we must make sure that we stay together and stand together. These are trying times. Every one of us need to work together. Doesn't matter about our differences. Those differences must be put aside and try and work together to be able to making our country a better place. With those few words, thank you once again. I look forward to even more regular interaction with you. I will try and make it as frequent as possible. I don't want to make it too many times and you get bored of me, but I appreciate the support that we are close to 40,000 plus followers on this page, and I look forward to engaging with you in a few weeks' time. Thank you. God bless you, each one of you, and good night through from myself. Thank you. Bye-bye.